Hey everyone, this is Kevin with Divinely Designed, and we're going to do another custom box for soap. So another paper crafting video. And on my last one I got a couple of questions about, well, how did I determine the size of the box and where to do the score lines. So I'm going to talk a little bit more closely about that on this video. So this is the soap I'll be making a box for. This is Lavender Peppermint, and again, it's a sort of it's from the tall and skinny mold. And this is the final product we'll be working on. So as you can see, it has a sort of an inset that I did where I put these sort of, lavender flowers with a little bow, and then some paper punches for some flowers, and some inking around the edges as well. Alright, so this is what we'll be working on for our final project. Now, to start, we want to figure out what the dimensions of our soap are. So I've measured my soap, and what I have is 4 inches tall by 2 1/4 inches wide by 1 inch deep. Okay, those are the actual measurements. Now, I want to give it a little wiggle room, so to that I've added 1/4 inch to the height, right, 4 1/4, 1/4 inch to the width, so 2 1/2, and I've actually added more to the width, and that's because of the design that I'm doing. If you remember, there's sort of this little inset in here, if you can see that. So I'm actually adding 3/8 of an inch to the depth part of it to account for the design of the box that I'm going to be doing. Okay, so this is ultimately kind of what the size of the box is that I wanted to get to. Now, in terms of the size and figuring it out a little bit more in depth, here's what I do sometimes. So here I just have a piece of paper, and this is just an 8 1/2 by 11 piece of paper. And if you take your soap, you can actually kind of walk it through to figure out what the dimensions are. So my soap, right, is going to, I don't know if you can see this, the score marks are on here, if I sort of move it around, right? So I already have some score marks. But if I were trying to figure it out, let's say, right, my soap is going to sit like that in a box. Now, I need to account for the height of it, so if I kind of roll it, this gives me my first dimension, right? So that's the 1 3/8 part that I had before, right? Because I know that's the depth of my soap. So now I need to account for the width. So here I have 2 1/4, which would make my next score line. So 1 3/8 becomes my first score line. Then 1 3/8 plus the width, which is 2 1/2, becomes my next score line, which is 3 7/8. Then I would walk my soap one more time, right? I need to account for this side. So that's another 1 3/8, which would put the score line at 5 1/4. And I need a top of the box, right? So I'm going to walk it again. So that's another 2 1/2 inches. So that would put the score line at 7 3/4. And then I would need another side to close to close the box itself. So that would be at 9 1/8. And I didn't make that one, so here it is, 9 1/8. So I'm going to take my little scoring tool and score it down here. So that's the total length of my box, is 9 1/8. Then I would turn it, and I do the same thing, right? Except this time, we're accounting for the other side of the soap. So here I can place my soap like this. So again, I'm at that 1 3/8 mark, so that's my first score. Then I would have to do it this way, right? That is 4 1/4 inches. So my next score mark would be at 5 5/8. Then again, if I were continuing, right, it would be on its top, so that's the 1 3/8 again. So that next score mark would be 7. And then I need to account to close the box. So that would actually, if I were just closing it, you know, right here, that would be the 7 mark. But I'm going to make another little lip. You can see here that closes. So I'm going to add another 1/2 inch. So that makes that size of that paper 7 3/4 of an inch. Okay, so that's how I sort of figure out the sizes. Once I have my dimensions of what I think I need to account for, right, I actually have my soap dimensions. Then I've added a little wiggle room, so that's my actual box dimensions. And then I just sort of walk it out on the paper, and that helps me to sort of visualize what the box should look like. Okay, so I should end up with a piece of paper that is 9 1/8 inches long this way, and 7 1/2 inches long this way. Okay, and my score marks again on the long side, just to go over them. So on the 9 1/8 inch, the score marks are at 1 3/8, 5. Oops, I'm sorry. Yeah, 1 3/8, 3 7/8, 5 1/4, and 7 3/4. Then I would turn it, and my score marks are at 1 3/8, 5 5/8, and 7. Okay? Now you'll notice that on my little template here, I've marked out because these areas are then we need to cut out to make our box. But let me go through actually making the scores. Okay, so I have it my long way. This is a, let's see if I can get it in the shot here. This is a Martha Stewart tool, a scoring tool. So, all right, so 9 1/8 is up against my scoreboard. My first one's going to be at 1 3/8. 3 7/8. 5 1/4. And 7 3/4. Okay, then I'm going to turn it. My first score is at 1 3/8. 5 5/8. And then 7. Okay, so get the scoreboard out of the way here. Now, remember our template. If I have my little template right next door, I need to get rid of this box up here, these 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and this one. Okay, so I'm going to cut those. Okay, and this little corner up here. Okay, now I'm going to cut up all of these little lines here, all just the ones there, because they will be closure pieces. And I'm also going to just cut a tiny little sliver sort of on the angle here. That makes it a little bit easier to close. You may not really have to do this. I mean, I've done it without cutting the little slivers. And, you know, sometimes they close just fine. This is just a little, kind of a little bit of a cheat, but... And again, you know, I'm making this for soap, some handmade soap that I made, but I totally get that, you know, this is for those people who are, you know, who make a living making soap and really mass produce it. Making boxes like this is probably not doable, because certainly this takes a lot of time. Actually, you know, taking the design of the box is sort of what takes the most time. Once I have the design down, then you can kind of mass produce the elements quickly, and it doesn't take that much time, actually, once you sort of have it all figured out. Now notice that here on this portion, I'm not cutting anything in. I'm leaving it completely straight, okay? But on all the other ones, I'm cutting just a little bit of an angle. Okay. Okay, so we end up with our template, right? So all the places that were supposed to be cut out, we've cut out. And I've just cut little notches in, and I've left this one straight. Now, on this one, I'm going to round the corners because that makes it easier to close. So I have a little corner rounder. Just going to put that in there. Okay. And now I'm going to burnish my folds. Now this paper is cardstock, but it's not real thick cardstock, so they don't need, you know, you don't need to kill it here with burnishing. Just a nice little light burnish so that they close well. This is a fairly complicated design, so it does take a little while for each box. Okay. All right, so I've got all my lines burnished. Now I'm going to come back just to talk about why it's important that I have front written on here. You do want to remember sort of where here it is. Where your front is, because what we're going to do, right, here's the front part, so that would be this panel here, and why that's important is because we're going to use a die to cut a circle in the paper. I have Spellbinder's nestable die circles, and I'm using the third, yeah, I can get it out here. The third circle from the center. Now, remember in our design, the circle's sort of off to the side, right? So I'm going to place this kind of over here. And once I have it in a good position, I'm going to just use a little piece of tack, Post-it tape, and then we'll get the big kick here. Now I do have the magnetic platform down, but I do use a piece of tack on there because I kind of have to fold it over here. And so I just want to make sure I'm getting it in the right place. So that gives us a nice little circle there. I don't really worry about that little indentation because you're not going to see it that much really. Okay. Now, what I want to do, if you remember from our design, we have this sort of inset. So I have some paper that I cut just slightly smaller than the panel here. And what I'm going to do is put some foam dimensionals in the corner. Now, in my sample box, I only used one foam dimensional. I did think about using two layers. I think I have enough room to do it. I might play with that a little bit later. Oh, I'm going to use one more though, just to put it over here. Okay. All right, take off my paper. Okay, now it's just sort of easier to do it this way first. I'm going to just turn this over and put my piece of paper there. So now I have a nice little indentation. Now for the next part, we're going to be putting in this little flower, which is supposed to look like lavenders, little lavender bunches. So what I used for that was a product here called Flower Soft, and it comes in different colors. Let me hold it up here just so you can see what that is. See if I can get the glare off of it. So Flower Soft. You can see right here, it's these little pieces of like plastic. And they come in different colors. So this one is a lavender, which is what I used to make this primarily. You can see it has a nice, sort of dark and light kind of purple. And then I mixed it with some delphinium blue, just to give it a little bit of depth. So I took some floral wire and added hot glue to it, and then just rolled it in the Flower Soft. And so what you end up with are these, kind of fuzzy little, they look sort of like lavender branches or petals, whatever that is. So you can see here I have a whole bunch of them. And like I said, like when you're sort of mass producing, it goes a little bit faster. But I have them all kind of just on individual little pieces of floral wire. And what I did then was take, so this stuff's kind of cool. You could mix it, like I said, it comes in other colors. I have green and pink here. It comes in, I think there's like brown, and they have some mixture, like they have a summer mixture and a fall mixture, and so it's kind of interesting to play with. So I take 3 of those, as you can see, and I group them together, and then I used a little hot glue to hold them together, and then I tied a little bow. And I used the fork method of tying a small bow. So just to go over that quickly, here's a regular sized dinner fork, and I have a piece of ribbon that's about 8 inches long. And then you're going to fold the ribbon in half over the fork, just like that. This back piece, the back side of the ribbon, you're going to make a little bit longer than the front side. So you can see there, if I can get this to cooperate, the back side is a little bit longer. Then, if I can hold this so you can see what I'm doing, I'm going to hold it on the side. The back piece, I'm going to make sure it comes over top of the ribbon. I'm going to slide it through the middle of the fork, almost, like you're threading a needle. Slide it through the middle. So now it's coming out the back here. And then bring it up and through the middle portion again, right? Okay, so one more time. The back piece, I'm going to make sure I come over the top of the front ribbon, thread it through the middle of the fork like I'm threading a needle, push it to the back, grab that as it comes out the back, bring it up and through the middle of the fork and down. Now I'm going to lay my fork down. I'm going to pull this nice and tight here. And then, whoops, you need like 3 hands to do this. And then I'm just going to tie a knot. So I'm going to bring the bottom portion up, over, around, and through to make a knot. And then I'm going to pull that nice and tight. Now, the back side of my fork is really the front of the bow. So if you look, you can see it makes a perfect little bow. And before I take it off the fork, what I like to do is make sure I've pulled nice and tight. And then I'm going to grab them, both the tails, and I'm going to sort of pull them down and wiggle them a little bit so that they are facing kind of the right direction when I pull the bow off the fork. Sometimes you can get them to go kind of wonky, and when it's on the fork it's a little bit easier. So now I can slide it off my fork and I have sort of a perfect little bow. And again, you can sort of play with it and tug it a little bit. And then I'm going to take my scissors and I need sharper scissors here. And just cut them at sort of a little decorative angle. And so that gives you a nice little bow, right? Okay. So the size of the fork you use will determine the size of your bow. So what I did was I took those 3 little lavender pieces that I made up and I hot glued a little bow on them. So I end up with this little decoration. And that's why I did this first, because it's easier just to have this in place and then sort of put it right where it needs to go and hot glue it in place. So my hot glue is on my other table. I'm just going to go over there real quick and put a dab of hot glue on. Okay, sorry for that. All right, so that just makes it easier to put the placement of that on. You're not trying to fiddle with it. And then the next thing I'm going to do is just do a little bit of sponging. So I have some Distress ink. This is Tim Holtz Distress Ink Seedless Preserves. And I have the round blending tool. And I'm just going to pounce it on the ink pad there and come by and sponge the sides just to give it a little bit of definition. So do that all around. Okay, and that gives the front of our box some nice definition. Okay, and then I'm going to decorate the front with some little paper flowers. Now, what I did with these, I have some paper punches. This is a Reflections paper punch. This is an Elk Tools paper punch, and I think these might be Fisker's punches. But I have several different flower shapes, so I used all of those to make some different flower shapes. And for the bigger ones, like this one, there actually are 3 different flower shapes. and then I sponged the outside, if you can see that. I just sponged around it. For the smaller ones I didn't sponge, and for the bigger ones I have some purple rhinestones, and for the smaller ones I have some Stampin' Up! Basic jewel rhinestones that I used for some of those. So I've made a couple of them up, and I have another punch that makes this little leaf shape. So from my box, I get one of the big ones, two of the dark purple ones, two of these paler roundish ones, and then two each of the tiny little purple ones. And you can see I use just different shades of purple. And I'm going to use some, the punches out of here. And move everything to the side here. Okay, so I have some Tombow Mono Multi glue, and I'm just going to carefully kind of glue on these little pieces. Don't need a whole lot here. So this is, Lavender Mint is the soap. So I'm trying to use the little green here to represent sort of the mint. And then I'm just going to glue the other flowers in place. And obviously you could use whatever flower punches you have, and just make a combination of flowers here that looks pretty. I'm going to just put a little bit of glue on my craft mat here. Sometimes it's a little easier to pick up. And I'm just using my paper piercer to Okay, now we're going to make the box actually. So I'm going to be a little bit careful because these are obviously not dry yet. But you want to fold the box, right? You want to keep this to be the front. So I'm going to fold the box over here. I want this to be my nice edge. So this bottom portion I'm going to fold up and tuck there, right? So I keep this nice edge here, and the same with these panels. I want these the ones to be folding down, so they go last. The side pieces go in. These go in, and then because we made that little round piece, it's going to tuck in there. And I would just glue down, right? I'm going to glue down this side here. This side right here and this one are the ones I want to have glue on. Okay. And as you hold those two sides in place, just you'll want to like make sure your box shape has come together. Oh, and there's one piece I should have cut off here. Oh, I must have missed that. I think I forgot to cut one little template off, one little piece off. We don't need this tab. I must have missed that on my template. Okay, then this side just folds down. Remember, because we made those rounded corners, it's going to help that to close nice and tight so it stays all together. And there we have it. There's my lavender and peppermint boxes for my lavender and peppermint soap. Okay, so that's it for this episode. Comments, questions, leave them below. I got a very good response from my last paper crafting soapbox video, so I think there's a lot of people out there who kind of like it, so I think I may continue to do some of them. Oh, and I should mention, you'll notice here I've given these flowers a little bit of dimension, and I've just sort of pulled up some of their petals. You can do that as well. Right now these are still gluing, you know, the glue is still pretty wet, but afterwards you can come in here and sort of flick them up to give them a little bit more dimension. That makes it look very good as well. So, okay, sorry. So comments, questions, leave them below. If you like this video, click on that like button. If you are not subscribed to my channel, give that subscribe button a click as well. And thanks very much for watching. Check back here at Divinely Designed for more bath, beauty, soap, and paper crafting videos. All right, thanks everyone. Bye.